Hello everyone, welcome back to Museum Diaries.
Hi.
I'm here with Veronica, and one of the things that brought up this video is the topic of death. We just lost our cat Zeus, and Veronica was very close to Zeus. Zeus was very close to her. He would spend the night in her room and do things like tip her water glasses over and demand attention.
And he would
demand massages because
Yes.
he had arthritis. So, but we lost him.
When we adopted him, he was a street cat. He was meowing in front of our door, and he kept it up. And I invited him in. He came inside, and
He was after our female cat Artemis.
Artemis, right behind Jax.
Spayed. She's spayed. And
he fell in love with her.
And she took a liking to him. So we
He
brought him
moved
in.
in.
We had him neutered. We
Yeah.
kept him quarantined for a little bit in the garage, and that was terrible seeing him go through being in a cage. He didn't like it.
But when we had adopted him, he had no hair on his front side because he had been hiding under trucks and cars. So he had all these scratches and no hair. It had been torn off from having to hide underneath vehicles and, you know, against the pavement, squeezing your body in.
Right.
So he had a very hard life, and we took him to the vet. It was like over $500 for his
vet
first
bills
visit.
are expensive.
Yeah, and the doctor said that he has liver failure and that he will die from it, and there's really not anything that can be done. You just keep him around as
Yeah,
much
they
as
hooked him
possible.
up to an IV at that time because
Yeah.
he was starting to
Suffering
slow
from,
down.
Yeah,
But
dehydration, lack
But
of
that
vitamins.
treatment did him really good, and he hung out there for.
Yeah, we had him for what, a couple
He
of
hung
years?
in there for a couple. We had him for a couple years, but he hung in there for about another year, I would say. We took
After
very
that.
good care of him, but he just, you know, it finally came down to him just shutting down, and there was nothing we could do but just let him pass. And so talking about death, it's hard when you have to let go of those that you love. It's really hard. And my friend, there's something I want to talk about. I have a very special dear friend. Her name is Rochelle. Her and her husband Gary, Rochelle and Gary Caldwell, I have known for years, and I used to work with her. I would hang out with them. I would spend time with them, spend the night at their home when they lived in Buellton, not too far from Santa Barbara. But they were just such a dynamic duo. Both of them, both were in the military. Both rode their Harley Davidsons. They're just
Together.
amazing people. The most amazing, dedicated, loyal to each other couple, and so deeply connected because of their past that I found just very, very honored to have known. And Gary has passed away, and this is difficult because
It just happened.
you know, within a month and a half's time, he withered away and he passed away at home. And they have a 12-year-old daughter, which reminded me.
Tell her it was COVID.
It really reminded me of what happens in that moment that we're caring for someone and we see no way out. We know they're gone no matter what. They're gonna leave us. And I want to talk about this because Veronica experienced this with her husband, her late husband Jake, and they had Juliet, their daughter, at 12 years old at the time, I believe, when Jake passed. So what was that like to you? If you can help bring Rochelle some comfort from all of this that she's going through right now. They have 3 dogs, 3 cats. They have a beautiful home. They were able to build this pretty unique family.
Good.
And she has a big family, which is good, but they were able to have a great life together because Gary really provided for her. So he's gone now, and it's so heartbreaking for me knowing what she's going through. So I am so sorry, honey, for what you're going through right now. I know it's gotta hurt because it hurts me just thinking about it and thinking about both you and Gary, and now you have Riley. So Veronica, having gone through this, is going to touch on it a little bit and kind of share with you what that first year is like. Do you remember going back to the time when he was in your arms and he passed?
Yes, I would first like to offer my deep felt condolences to you, Rochelle, and your family. This kind of loss is irreparable, and it's what you shared was sacred. And I've been a widow now over 10 years, and I still keep his ashes beside me in bed. That gives me a lot of comfort. So let me show you some photos of us real quick so you kind of get an idea of who we were. So this was him.
And Jake was 27 years older than Veronica.
He was a scholar, a professor of law. This was his best hobby, his favorite hobby before we got married. Fishing, right? He loved this truck, and you can see he has the sleek camper over it. He would take that out and go to these different places to go swimming. Well, nature intervened and I got pregnant.
And they met, mind you, while Veronica served her 23-year sentence out of a natural life sentence. They met, and they also had Juliet while she was serving time.
This is her after her birth with my late husband Jake, and there I am. And this is him having to take care of her at home without me. So he was there doing the bottle feedings. You know, I nursed her during the visit times, but nursing, being able to nurse her was sporadic. It wasn't very consistent. And there she is with her father. There he is changing a diaper. This is her as she's getting a little bit older. There's Santa Claus. And this is her talking on the phone to me.
That's Juliet when she was little.
Yes, she was.
How cute.
And this is her sending her love to me.
Because how old was Juliet when you got out of prison?
She was 7.
7 years old when they finally got to live their lives together as a family.
This is us together.
Jake, Juliet, and Veronica.
And there we all are together.
That's a great picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And although there was a disparity between our ages, it really didn't matter, because when you fall in love, it doesn't matter the age, the race, the color, the weight, the looks of another person, because we don't fall in love based on someone's looks. We fall in love based on someone's character and integrity, their ethics, their spirituality. And so to me, love has no barriers. As long as it's not children, you know, love has no barriers and no racial lines. So what I wanted to talk about today, and I hope this might help you, Rochelle.
And that's how I saw Rochelle and Gary's relationship, because they were so deeply connected. I didn't see the age difference between them, because Gary was older than Rochelle by a few years, by more than 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I know that.
You know what that's like then.
Yeah, so, but getting to know Gary, he's a funny guy. Getting to know him, he was just a great person to be around with. I never saw him angry. He was always even-keltered and
Sounds
just
like Jake. He was
a
that
funny
way.
guy, and very, very sweet and endearing to Rochelle. Such a good man, and it just kind of reminds me of that feeling you're talking about that goes beyond the age barrier, and you had that with Jake.
Absolutely. No one can understand the suffering and the pain that you're experiencing. You know that. Even another widow, because all of us have our own individual relationships with our spouse, and we grieve at our own rate. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she is the textbook queen of the stages of grief, and she works with people. She did work with people on death and dying, preparing the families, preparing the people that were going to die. And so the stages of grief work. One person may immediately be angry that the spouse dies. Another person may be totally bereft and You can't get them out of bed, the depression hits. But what happens with grief, they say, is that it's a cycle. So there are all these different stages, and we each go through them. Whether you go through the anger stage first or last, whether you go through the depression stage first or last, we all seem to follow this continuum. And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross helped me with the death and dying. It will never, all the knowledge that we can accumulate, all the wisdoms, all the blessings by spiritual people, it still does not repair the damage and the injury that we feel within our hearts over losing the love of our life. And when you have their baby, how sacred that is. It's an incomparable experience that other people cannot touch unless they've walked in those shoes. And even then, each of our experiences are individual. Like my husband, it took him 7 years to slowly die with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, which is a very hard disease for someone to live through. And to be a caregiver, I didn't care. I waited on him hand and foot, and I would never want to do anything but, because I adored him. He was the love of my life, so I just wanted him to be happy and content as much as humanly possible. But it's a very hard row to toe, and after they leave us, there is a sense that we're alone. But what I have come to understand is his spirit is still there. And for me personally, I did not want him buried in the ground. He wanted his ash to be cremated. I wanted his cremated ashes, and I have them now. They're in my bedroom by my bed, and I sleep with them every night. And it's been years and years and years, but it gives me comfort. And his photos are in my room, and I look at them day after day, and I have for years, and I will continue to, because I want to honor him. The burden gets lighter in a sense. You're still missing that other part of you, but to me it's almost like getting amputated, like an arm gets amputated, your right arm. And it's hell at first, but over time we learn to adapt. And I would say that when we lose the most significant person in our lives, it seems that we can never survive the pain. It's like we're going to die of a broken heart or a heart attack or something, right? But we don't. We live through this. And in the process of living through it, we become stronger, and we become more able to think about times that were empowering and what were the best lessons that Jake taught me. So I think back, well, this is how he responded when this situation happened. And by looking to him as an example, I could carry a piece of his personality within me. And I would like to think that he's part of me. And I know each person's experience with death is going to be different. So I'm not going to say I know exactly the burdens and the pain that you're suffering. I know what I suffered through after being married for 23 years and together for 27 years, having a daughter together.
Now, what was that like for her, for Juliet?
It was very hard.
Because
hard.
Rochelle and Gary have Riley, who's going to be 13.
That was Juliet's age, yes. Well, for Juliet, after I was in bed with Jake when he passed, he had amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS. So basically, over the period of 7 years, he started to lose each bodily function, to the end where I had to suction his lungs to get the fluid out, because he had 1.5 liters in one lung and a liter in the other lung, and that was at his deathbed. So before that, they gave me a suction to put down his throat and suck out the lungs from this water. They also gave him a stomach tube so that he could no longer eat food the last 3.5 years. I would feed him bottled things and put it on an IV stand. And as time wore on, he couldn't move his arms. He couldn't walk. He couldn't talk. He relied on me for everything. And when it came time for him to pass, he knew, and he was ready.
And Juliet seen all of this, the stages
Yes.
of his deterioration.
Yes, and we went through counseling, and I really recommend, if you can find a good grief counselor for both of you or for your daughter, I highly recommend it. My daughter still does counseling off and on, because, you know, so young to lose your father in this day and age. But she's managed to have a good life, and she's still grieving him, even though it's been over 10 years. I'm still grieving him. I haven't been with anyone else. I'm not involved with anyone else. I had a crazy marriage to an Army vet that lasted for a week, basically. And it wasn't really a marriage. It was just like something that I fell into, and then it was over. I couldn't substitute Jake. I just couldn't. No man could. Ever.
Yeah, never have anyone intoxicate you to get you to marry them.
And that's
heavily.
what happened. Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. The point being is that I tried to resurrect my life after he had been gone for 6 years, and I couldn't do it. Of course, that marriage failed, and we don't live together. We haven't lived together for years. We've lived apart longer than we were ever married. And he's a Vietnam vet. He has all this trauma. He's fully disabled. So anyway, he lives in another state. I live here. My daughter lives in another state where her father used to be a professor. He was a scholar emeritus, and he would travel all over the world lecturing about criminal law and American jurisprudence and write papers on it and all of that stuff.
What was it like for her not having him the first year? Did she act out? Did you?
No,
Did you come to the realization that I have to take care of my child?
Yes.
Of
course. Of course.
Because you were both grieving.
I didn't ignore her, yes. But there's something that happens, and when you're a mother, you cling to your child even more, I think, after they lose their father, because you want to try to compensate. You want to try to comfort. So she was with me all the time, and I would sleep in her bed sometimes. She could come into our bedroom and sleep beside us, where he used to sleep. I just tried to do everything I could with her, tried to keep her spirits up, indulged her in art supplies and classes that she wanted to do, special classes, ballet, piano, saxophone, cello, whatever.
And she turned out to be a great musician. She's a great artist. She plays guitar. She has a couple albums out.
Yeah.
Now she's a film producer, and she's familiar with death. She's lost her best friends. She's lost her father at such a young age. And she writes about it in her music.
She could have died many a time.
Yeah, she could have died, Juliet.
She had to have open heart surgery when she was 5. So that was hell. And it had to do with a tooth extraction. Her dentist had extracted one of her back molars, did not give her antibiotics, which in Washington State, they were not legally forced to do. But what happened is she caught like an endocarditis. So she lost her mitral valve. The bacteria had totally infested those heart valves, and they were able to save the arterial valve. I can't remember, atrial valve.
No, she's got an artificial valve.
Yeah, so her other valve is artificial. It's called a St. Jude's piece. She has to be on anti-rejection medicine for the rest of her life. So can she have children? Doesn't look good. At any rate, she's doing well. And it's taken her a lot of years and a lot of friends and a lot of support to get her to where she is now, where she doesn't think about her father every day all the time. He's more like the spiritual helper, And we talk about the good memories with her father. I'm not crying every day now. I cried for 10 years every day. And I just recently stopped crying every day, although I still will weep for him. It takes a long time. It took me a long time to not cry and not obsess over him all the time.
Yeah, because when I came into your life, you were still mourning him.
Very much. Yeah.
And this was 3 years ago.
Yes.
So I think the part of missing that person that never goes away, I feel that especially with my dog Snickers, who is a dog. But
Let me get his ashes.
I was so bonded to Snickers. I mean, she was like my little right-hand dog. I mean, she was at my command. She was so in tune to me, and we were the bestest of friends. And when she got hit by a car, I was devastated. I was completely torn apart. I was a mess. Veronica had to help me snap out of that period because I was depressed for a week, mourning her, terribly mourning her. I didn't want to get out of bed, and I couldn't take it anymore. I finally decided to start looking for a dog, and a week after she passed, because I just knew that there was another life out there that needed to be rescued, and I found Lucky. So, I'm not saying that Snickers is replaceable, but helping another dog, by helping Lucky and bringing her into my life, it helped
bring more meaning to you.
Right. And as we're going to do with this kitten that we're adopting, he's still in utero. He's going to be born any day now. We're going to get a kitten, and it'll be nice to have another boy kitty around for Artemis and for Lucky. So these are Jake's ashes.
Here's Jake, one of his love poems. And this is my beloved. And he wanted some of his ashes to be sprinkled by streams and in the water. So I couldn't bear to leave all of his ashes. I said, I'll never part with all of your ashes. He said, I know. So I did the rituals that he asked with his friends that he wanted to be there, and Juliet's friends, because her friends were his friends. All the kids loved him. And so now I keep my love right by my bed every night, and it helps give me strength. And I wrote a book called Eating the Ashes, and it's a study of programs for women in prison that I began to help women in rehabilitation. And anyway, as bizarre it may sound, eating the ashes became very significant to me when I had my husband and he was in ashes, and I'm just grateful that I have him. And it feels so nice and warm to hold him, to sleep with him, and it means the world to me, and I could never let go of these ashes. So that's my story, and if I can help in any way, if Juliet can help any way,
Rochelle, we're here for you. If you need anything, you have my number. Please get in contact with us.
Yes.
And again, I'm really sorry, my friend. I love you, and I know that you're going through a tough time right now, but you will get through this. You will get through this. And Gary, in a sense, will always be there.
Yes.
He will always be there, Rochelle. That's all I want to say. I want to thank you all for tuning in for this segment of Museum Diaries. As I've said before, we have a Patreon where you can become a patron of Museum Americana and collect our art, because we do produce art that we do on reprints every month. So check that out. Anyway, thank you all for watching. We will see you in the next Museum Diaries. Bye for now.
God bless you all.
God bless you all.
Stay safe.
And rest in peace, Gary Caldwell. Thank you.
Peace, Gary.
Bye for now.
Amen. That was